Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark of the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2018 Japanese animated movie Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms.
Well, I suppose that'll do.
Hey, well, that's not, you don't have to settle if you don't want to, but I think that this is going to be a pretty good review. Now, I will say up front that the version of this movie that I watched was dubbed in English, which I always try to stay away from Japanese animated movies that's dubbed in English. I'd rather watch it in its native language because I think that it really failed for me. I thought the voice acting in this movie was absolutely atrocious. I didn't think that any of it was all that good. I personally thought the movie was a little overly complicated. I didn't think it was as good as some of the other animated movies I watched, such as Grave of the Fireflies, which I thought was fantastic. And I don't know, maybe it's just that I have a simple brain, but there were so many different things, plot points going on in this movie, so many different characters that you were introduced to that I kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. Now, I will say the end of the movie is very heartfelt. It is very touching. It is very moving. Not as moving as some other movies that I've reviewed for this list. This has a similar, not very similar, but similar plotline to the silent film The Kid by Charlie Chaplin, which I thought moved me more. I thought that I was more emotional during that movie. The end of this movie, I will say it did get me. I was a little bit in tears, but like I said, I just thought this movie was overly complicated. I thought that there was too much going on, and the voice acting was really, really quite bad for me. So I'm going to try to summarize this plot the best I can. We'll see how it goes. So the main character, her name is, of course, Maquia, which makes a lot of sense. Now, she is what is called an Eorf. Now, Eorfs are beings that do not age past the age of 14, and they can live for hundreds of years. So she, I believe, is 15 years old, they say in this movie. And there's another race, another city, another country near the Eorfs that want to try to harvest the Eorfs' ability to stay young. Now, the king of that area, he has these dragons called like Renodos, and they're starting to go extinct, and that's like the big military muscle of his country, and he's afraid that once they all go extinct and he loses that, he's going to lose his country, he's going to lose every bit of might that he has. So he decides to invade this land of the Eorfs so he can figure out what makes them young. I don't think he ever comes up with that solution of why they stay young, but during his attack, there is a child who is left abandoned that Maquia finds. Now, like I said, she's only 15 years old. And she can live for hundreds of years, so this presents a problem in that if she takes on a child, she is both a very young mother who is very unexperienced in life. She is just a child herself, and she is going to live far past what her son will live to if he is also not an Eorf. She was told by someone else earlier in this movie that Maquia, that is that you shouldn't care too much about people because you will be hurt one day, and that kind of foreshadows what's going on here. She really loves this kid. She decides to take this kid on her as her own. Now, clearly, everyone can see how this is going to end. He is going to either pass away of old age or some other way, and it's going to be a very sad ending. They set that up from the very beginning, so I don't think there's any kind of trick ending here. You know that it's probably going to come. Now, there is another girl who is friends with Maquia. Her name is like Lilia. She is kidnapped by the king of this country because since he can't figure out how the Eorfs stay young, he's going to take an Eorf, which she is, and he's going to have a child with her so that they have an Eorf together. And, this Eorf can live for hundreds of years, make sure that his family stays in power, blah, blah, blah. So that's the plan. Now, she ends up getting pregnant with his child. It ends up not being an Eorf though, so she kind of feels like she is going to be shunned and she's going to be kicked out of his castle, which she didn't want to be in anyway. She was kidnapped. Now her boyfriend, who's also an Eorf, he comes and tries to save her, and he comes with Maquia. They both try to save her at one point. He fails to do so. He eventually dies in some way. I had a very hard time piecing all of this together, so I'm hoping that I'm doing this correctly, like I said. So Lilia ends up, I believe, getting forced off the premises at one time, and then Maquia's son, who she has called Ariel, he grows up. He begins to kind of I want to say he kind of sours on his mom because of their age difference, because he's growing older, she's staying younger. He kind of doesn't like the situation that he's in. He kind of like learns to not like Maquia a little bit. He has some animosity towards her for some reason. So he ends up joining the army. He ends up getting married, or he ends up having a child with a woman. And later on in the movie, he realizes that Maquia found him and raised him as her own because he loved her, because she was giving everything that she had for him. It's this really touching scene at the end of the movie where he kind of grows up and he kind of realizes why she did this for him, why she did this, why she took him in, because she loved him. He has a lot of issues in his life with his parents not being there, being taken over by the Eorf, who is going to live for hundreds of years, her not really being his mom. But then he realizes later in the movie that this is his mom, this is the mom he grew up with. And towards the end of the movie, he is an old man and he's kind of laying on his deathbed, and Maquia told him at one point that she was never going to cry again. And at the end of the movie, she ends up breaking that promise and she ends up crying. Now, this is a 2-hour movie. I'm sure there's a lot of details. There's a lot of plot things that I missed. You can go back and you can watch the movie if you want. I was just trying to give a very brief synopsis, a very brief overview, so you kind of know what's going on, the emotions that are involved in this movie. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of emotions about caring for a child, taking on that responsibility of caring for a child. Are you prepared to take care of that child? Even if you think you're prepared, you're not ever really prepared because of the emotions and the things that you're going to run into later on. I'm sure she never thought that he was going to kind of not want to be in her life anymore. He was going to not understand why she did what she did. It's being a parent. You take on something you don't know really how it's going to end up, but you use the tools that you have. You use your love. You use everything you can to make sure that this child has the best upbringing that they can, and that's exactly what Maquia did, even though she was only 15 years old. I think a lot of credit has to be given to her because it was really hard for her to do this, especially knowing that she is probably going to outlive him, knowing that she's going to have to go through that heartache of seeing him pass away, but she wants to be able to provide him the life that he needs. She wants to make sure that he has love in his life. She wants to make sure that someone is there for him. And at the end of the movie, he finally figures this out, and he finally realizes what he had his whole life. Now, to be perfectly honest, I thought the animation in this movie was... I wasn't a huge fan of it. For some reason, I felt like the storyline, the dialogue, the animation, I was watching like one very long cutscene or end scene in a video game. I wasn't that impressed with it. The only thing that this movie really has going for it for me is just the raw emotion and the themes and the lesson at the end of the movie, what it makes you feel, how it makes you feel, the feelings that you get. Especially my mom passed away in 2019 very suddenly, so these type of movies really kind of get me emotional when it comes to a parent losing their child or a child losing their parent, especially when it's a mother and a son, which is involved in this movie. So, it makes me think about when I was younger, what my parents provided me, the kind of upbringing that they gave me, how thankful I am for what I was given, how thankful I am for how they treated me, how thankful I am for having fantastic parents who were really nice and great people. I mean, my dad's still alive. I don't know why I'm talking about him like he's in the past tense, but you know, people they were decent people who were loving and caring, and that's really I'd say what you need the most when you're a parent and when you're trying to raise a child. Now, I say that as someone who has a 14-month-old child now. I'm still kind of learning the ropes. But anyway, I thought that the movie was okay. It's not as powerful as, like I said, a lot of the other animated movies that I've seen for this. And it didn't move the needle as far as being something new like Mind Game was, which was absolutely fantastic. Animated movie, but I think it was just it was par for the course. It was good for me. It wasn't great. I know a lot of people are going to hate that opinion because I think a lot of people probably hold this movie in high esteem, but it was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't anything new. These are feelings that I felt for other movies too. It kind of played on those same sympathies, but I just thought it was okay. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I hope you join me next time when I review a movie that is actually a movie and a sequel. Both are 100% fresh from Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm going to review both of them. It is called A Bread Factory Part 1 and A Bread Factory Part 2. Thank you. Have a great day.